Hi, everybody. Bridget, thank you so much for joining us today for another live version. So nice to see you. And we
Hello,
have a
hello.
topic that I think a lot of people are going to appreciate because it is one of the challenges. I know as account management team, we talk to offices a lot, and this is one of their pain points that we hear from them, and that is missed appointments. Um, Especially coming into 2021, it may look a little bit different than our previous years, but I think it's a very noteworthy subject to chat about. So, you have had a lot of experience helping offices in the past with creating systems, implementing policies, really becoming really efficient with their front desk organization. So, let's kind of tap into some of your experience.
Yeah.
So, one of the questions that we had was, do you think it's important for a practice to have a written policy for the patient to sign or to be presented to them?
Yeah, yes and no. So it can be the discretion of the office. And I'm so glad we're talking about this because you're right. This is a weird year. So you may have to this all the stuff that we're going to talk about, you may have to bend it a little bit to conform to your practice. And I think we're hearing from offices that are short-staffed. So I think there are some offices that are actually welcoming cancellations, unfortunately. But in a regular setting, you wouldn't, and
Right.
I remember the days of answering the phones at a dental practice and, seeing the name of a person that was on the schedule for that day pop up on the caller ID, and you're like, just filled with
Right.
dread, like, are they going to cancel? So this is all about, kind of alleviating that and kind of just helping you navigate. So, as far as putting it in your policy for your patients to read, it is up to you. But it is, there is a benefit of having it in there, but you don't want to have it, in these bold letters. You don't want it to be like the largest print on your policy that says you will be charged $100 if you don't cancel within 48 hours, whatever. you know, I instead prefer like a nice message that says, hey, we reserve this time for you. We try not to interrupt your time when you're being seen. Um, you know, uh, we want to give you our undivided attention. We're not going to stack appointments on top of each other. So, having said that, you want to make sure that you respect their time as well.
Right.
So, is the doctor getting interrupted like 8 times during an appointment? Does he have to get up 8 times when you're doing that crown appointment or whatever the case may be? Is he getting interrupted for phone messages? You have to establish that respect from the very beginning. And that means having not just that written policy for the patients, but it also means having that policy in your office in general that just says, okay, we need to respect our patients' time. We need to, because we want them to respect our time. So we have to do it to them, you know?
Right. And that's such a good point. Mutual respect is always something that is a good reminder because I think you can get in the day to day business of doing your job and kind of forget the other side or the other perspective. And so that reminder of respecting their time, respecting um, their appointment, and then with that, hopefully they will give more validity to the time that they booked with you and not
Yeah.
cancel on you.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
when a patient does cancel, because it's going to happen,
Yeah.
do you think that officers should be charging them for the missed appointment?
Uh, in my opinion, and as an office manager and as someone who did accounts receivable, I don't. If I think back on all the times I went through accounts and had to delete missed appointments or send them a statement, I mean, my doctor would, like, in the beginning, would make me send a statement for them and try and collect them, and I'm like, this is such a waste of time. And in the end, when they left the practice, I would just end up writing that off. And you really can't send it to collections. No judge. First of all, if you even get to the point of standing in front of a judge, no one's going to say, yes, sir, you have to pay that missed appointment fee. There was no service rendered. And so, I, honestly, in my opinion, I don't think that you should. You, again, can, in certain circumstances you can. This year and last year especially, it's like impossible,
Right.
So short answer is no.
Right.
And I'll explain why, when we talk about an actual policy, but
Right.
that's my experience with it.
So let's talk about prevention for a second. What are some ways that a practice can prevent the cancellations or prevent the missed appointments? And I think that is probably a little more, definitely was a challenge in 2020.
Yeah.
And even going into 2021, we know that the pandemic is not over. So it might look a little differently as the year unfolds. But what would you say some ideas you would have to help them really try to mitigate and reduce the cancellations or prevent them?
There are so many things that you can do, and they range from, having that written policy all the way to posting on Facebook, and I'll explain that in a second. But we talk about COVID and we talk about what that looks like. See if you can get them to fill out some kind of COVID questionnaire ahead of time. And you can use the same platform that you're using to remind them of appointments. And if you don't have an automatic platform to remind them of your appointments, which most offices do now, please get one like as soon as this is over. Please get one. Text messages are the most effective way. We know that. It's even the most effective way to collect money through text message. Email, and people are going to complain about, I get so many, blah, blah, blah. Better safe than sorry, sir, or ma'am. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. And I think a lot of programs, you can adjust their personal settings, but that's obviously absolutely a must to have that. We talk about also using social media. And when we say that, you want to connect with your patients in any way that you can. So we're talking about respecting their time, which we mentioned earlier. And then also, if you've got this great connection with them over the internet, over social media, they're going to love you. I mean, we talk to offices all the time whose patients just love them, and they're active on social media. They respond to them. They're on first name basis. They've been going to a practice for 10 plus years. They've seen multiple generations come through because they have such strong bonds with their patients. And that's another thing that really reduces cancellations when you have such a strong connection with those patients. So that, believe it or not, and people don't realize that actually helps reduce those cancellations and missed appointments.
Right. Going back to that mutual respect, I guess, having that relationship, having that trust, they're going to be more mindful of your time with an office that they trust or with people they trust, and I also think that it helps if, not that you want to book someone out so far in advance, but knowing that there's more limits in last year, this year, there could be possibly more of a time gap before they can get back in, might sometimes make them rethink how quickly they cancel, make sure they're canceling for legitimate reasons if unfortunately they're not able to get back in because, the capacity could be limited.
Yeah. And that also plays into how much value are we putting into their visits? How much value are they taking away from when they do come in? Are we really driving home care, like what regular care means in return? Coming in on a regular basis, educating them on why it's so important, not just on social media, but like when they're there in the office too. On social media, it is important as well. Even on your website, it's important. So that, and then also making sure that patients feel comfortable during COVID when they're ready to come in. So having that message, we have a lot of our clients, I think almost every one of our clients has a message on their a separate page that talks about what they're doing for safety protocols during COVID, and putting that on social and just making sure patients feel comfortable, know that they're going to be okay, know that they're going to be taken care of when they come in during this really weird time.
And I think that messaging is really important. I think, right after the pandemic was in full force and then life started to get back a little bit more back to normal in the summer, we heard some feedback from some of the providers that they were kind of done with it. Like they were kind of sick of talking about the COVID protocols, and they assumed everyone knew. And then we have second waves and more shutdowns, and we're starting to find out that everyone doesn't know, and they're still scared. They're still nervous about where they should be and where their safety is, and what places you can go to safely. So continuing to update your messaging, like you mentioned, on social or on your website or in email blasts, keeping that communication, that reassurance with your patients and your audience is so important, because don't assume that because we know that the practice is safe that they do. Because now with with the new waves coming around, people are starting to get a little freaked out again. So I think it's really important to really keep the messaging up to date to help your patients.
And you can make it fun.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, while we're on the topic, it seems so relevant right now. We had a client that did like a video of them putting on all their layers and that was really fun. And that's another way to, connect to make them feel comfortable. So
absolutely, make it have a little fun with it. Have a little energy with it.
Yep.
So let's go back to kind of the policy and procedures portion. So what would you say an effective policy would look like?
An effective policy, to me, is when your entire team is trained on how to handle it, not just on a paper perspective. I'm talking about exactly what they're going to say on the phone, how they're going to act, the actual inflection of their voice, So I can personally tell you there's been times where I've been handling someone trying to cancel on the phone, and I didn't even recognize myself, because I was like, who is this person? I went from, oh no, you have to cancel, to please don't cancel. We've all been there on the phone where we're like begging this patient not to cancel. Please don't. So I think for me, the most effective way has been, and when I've trained other people this way too, it was really effective. When the patient first calls and they cancel the first time, or it's been like a year since they've been in, and they have an appointment and they call to cancel. I like the kind of 3 strikes and you're not scheduled. Not 3 strikes you're out, or 3 strikes we're charging you, but the 3 strikes, we're just not going to reschedule you. And you'll hear why, but the first thing you want to do is sound really concerned, so when your patient is on the phone and they're like, I need to cancel, I got called into work, or, my kid is sick, and be like, oh man, that stinks. Sally, the hygienist, was really looking forward to seeing you. She couldn't wait to catch up with you. Is there anything I can do to help you make this appointment? And then sometimes they'll joke and be like, I need a babysitter or whatever, when you find out and they really are genuine, or whatever the case may be, and you can't really salvage that appointment, then say, you know what, I understand stuff happens. I'm not going to charge you this time. We'll waive the fee. Let's get you back on the schedule. And so you can even put the patient on hold and look at their history. I don't recommend jumping right into that conversation. Give yourself a minute to prepare, because it's worth it. If you say, oh man, that's a bummer, can you hang on just 1 second? Let me, I got to finish checking out this patient. Put them on hold. And I know people are busy, but put them on hold, look up their chart real quick, see if you've got any leverage in there, see if you can, and if there's anything you could do to help salvage that appointment, and then jump right back into the conversation. This is a bummer. We were really looking forward to hearing about so-and-so's wedding, whatever the case may be. Or doctor's going to be so bummed. He loves to do this procedure, whatever the case may be. And this really is the same thing for the second time that they cancel. Use the same kind of language, use the same kind of concern. And you have to fake it to make it, because this is not how you feel when you pick up the phone and someone says, I need to cancel. This is not like, I'm not all chipper like this when someone calls. Inside my head, I'm going, are you serious? So same thing. All right, I can waive the fee one more time. So let's try this one more time. And when you say one more time, you're insinuating to them, you're like giving that impression like, okay, we're coming to the end here. We're coming to the point where we're not going to be able to keep doing this. And so when you get to that 3rd or 4th time, depending on how, graceful you're being, this is a bummer. This keeps happening. What a bummer. we're just having trouble syncing up, so in lieu of a missed appointment fee, I'm not going to reschedule you today, but I'm going to put you on a short call list or our last minute cancellation list. And so if we have a last minute cancellation, I'll give you a call. Would you like me to text you or email you or just call you? And when you say that, unless they're in some kind of like, if they're in the middle of getting like a root canal and phases or like a crown or something like that, it's very rare that you're going to have to deal with this. It's very rare that they're not going to finish. And I'll tell you why in a second. But basically what you're saying is, I'm not going to put you on the schedule. You're not respecting our time. I'm not going to reserve any more time for you on our schedule. So let's just put you on a short call list and move on, and they can call the day of and ask if you have an opening. This works really well too for patients that get called into work every time they have an appointment. Every time I got called into work. Okay, call me back when you're not working. Call me back when you have a day off and you can't come in. And no one is going to get angry about that because you still haven't charged them any money. So you're not making them mad. You're being completely reasonable with your schedule.
Right.
You've got a job to do. And so I like that. And I like that when you don't charge them and instead you're giving them the opportunity to call back and do it when they have time. And they're going to start to realize that you value your schedule and they can't get away with it. And I've done it so many times and it's worked wonders. And sometimes the patient gets it and they stop rescheduling so many times. And then sometimes you never hear back from them. And a couple weeks later, you get like a records request from another dentist. Totally fine. You don't have to worry about it anymore. They're not your problem anymore. So I like that policy, and it's never failed me. It's never failed me unless sometimes the doctor gets involved and says, no, we still need to see them, which is fine. That's completely their discretion. Right. But when you're talking like hygiene appointments or something that's not like super urgent, it just works fantastic.
Yeah, those are some great suggestions. And I like the kind of phased approach, and that you don't really toe the line or get stern with them until it's been consistent, a habitual problem that they're affecting your practice's production because they're continually canceling. And at that point, there is a point where you have to just kind of draw the line, because it is a valued appointment, especially when practices are having trouble getting people in. If someone consistently is taking a seat and then not giving you notice, that does affect the production of the practice. I know with COVID and with illness, they're still in kind of this flux where we have to sometimes have more, much more grace than we would have ever had in 2019.
Sure.
So there's definitely respecting that there is a legitimate pandemic going on, but I think those are great ways to handle it and think it through, so offices can find that balance between having their patients last minute ditch them all the time and feeling like they got charged when something legitimate came up or when there really was an illness. So those are great suggestions and great protocols. And I think a lot of our practices will have to revisit how they're handling missed appointments in 2021 and decide what's best for their practice.
It'll make life so much easier for them. I promise them it'll be so much easier. So
absolutely.
Yep.
Thanks for your time today, Bridget, and we will see you very soon.
Sounds good. Take care, everybody.
Bye.